This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer, come in, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den. And welcome in, folks. Episode number 89 here on the Huskies Warming House podcast. Can't believe we're already pushing 90 episodes. Happy to have a pair of co-hosts that I'm joined with on the show. We'll get their inputs in just a few moments. Caleb Peabody joins us for what I would believe is the third time on the show. And then it's going to be Alex Micheletti. Speaking of threes, it's the third week in a row he's been with me. And the last week that he's going to be co-hosting the show, unless Nick Maxon decides to fly off to Europe, which, you know what? It could happen. It really could. But nonetheless, boys, I'm happy to have you guys here. Happy to talk some hockey. We've got a quick Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup, just only two topics really to kind of get through. So that should be nice and quick. Talking a little bit about women's hockey, their success out in Troy, New York. A little bit about, of course, men's hockey is off this week. A little bit more about the college hockey world in general. Kind of what has that been looking like? The NCHC has been a dogfight. The Big Ten is starting to become a two-horse race, plus a couple of other players. And then the Minnesota Wild, they've had some ups and downs this past couple of weeks, a couple of trade rumors that we're going to discuss, and then the extra ice session. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. We're going to talk a little bit about some Thanksgiving tradition as well. So we're going to get started with Center Ice View News and Notes. Center Ice View News and Notes. Center Ice View provides you with the best coverage of St. Cloud State Huskies hockey, from game notes, recaps, photos, and more. Go to centericeview.com. Folks, the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup. Like we mentioned, two topics to get to. Starting off, St. Cloud hockey. The men's team is off. They're 9-5 on the season. They're back in action against North Dakota this upcoming weekend. It's actually a doubleheader for the men's and women's hockey teams, but it was women's hockey that was the only team on the road this weekend in New York over Thanksgiving. Team facing RPI coming away 2 wins sweeter in Friday's 4-1 win and Saturday's 4-2 victory. Sophomore Emma Gentry scored twice with 8 shots on goal on Friday, while the team 6 for 6 on the penalty kill. Taylor Lynn, Janina Newland scoring on Friday, and 7 different Huskies earning assists in that Friday night. Emma Paluzny stopping 33 or 34 shots, pretty accustomed to what we've seen from her in her Huskies career. On Saturday, much of the same. It was sophomore netminder Sonia Hola that got the call that night, stopping 26 of 28 in a 4-2 win. The Huskies opened with Addie Scribner's tally from Allie Cornelius, and Huskies started rolling, but then it was the Janina Newland show, a hat trick for her to finish that hockey game, her first collegiate hat trick of her career. Emma Gentry finishing the weekend plus 6, Taylor Lynn joining her in that category as well. The team killing all 3 penalties on Saturday. The team improving to 6-7-1 overall. They're going to host Bemidji State this Friday, 3 p.m. Central Time at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center, and Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time in a doubleheader with the men's team, as we had mentioned. The two clubs, Bemidji and St. Cloud, played to a 2-1 overtime exhibition win for St. Cloud to start the season in late September at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. Guys, I got a couple of questions for you here as we go to our last topic here on the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup. First, let's kind of talk some waiver wire stuff. The Ottawa Senators play struggling netminder Matt Murray, $6 million cap hit. He's on waivers. Kind of an interesting story. A guy that won a Stanley Cup, what is it, a mere 6 seasons ago now. Alex, I kind of want to start with you. What is going on with Matt Murray?
Yeah, there was, I saw a tweet yesterday. Darren Dreger was saying that, he had talked to people around the league, and, a lot of these guys that have gotten COVID, are really struggling, coming back and being full strength. And he said that, Murray actually had symptoms. A lot of the guys are asymptomatic, but he actually had symptoms. And so, yeah, it's tough, trying to get back from that, and, I'm sure lingering effects. And then it doesn't help that he's on a team that struggles defensively and gives up a ton of, offensive opportunities for the other team to score. And so, they just play a helter-skelter kind of type of game where they score a lot, but they give up a lot of goals. And so just a bad case all around for Matt Murray. He's been a good goaltender in the past. It's really tough to see him struggle, but hopefully he can turn it around. I don't think any team is going to want to pick up his contract. Yeah. So I'm sure he'll just go right to their AHL team. We'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of weird ever since even kind of the tail end with, Jeff Zadkoff and Tristan Jarry and that tail end of his time in Pittsburgh. It's been kind of a struggle for him a little bit. Hopefully we wish him the best. Caleb, I want your opinion on the Matt Murray stuff, but I also want to throw another one at you here. A couple more stories here. The National Hockey League, kind of around the league a little bit. Connor McDavid's 17-game point streak. He was finally snapped of that in a loss against the Dallas Stars. And Andrei Vasilevsky, his 200th win in his 318th appearance, 28 career shutouts for him. He was only shy of Ken Dryden, who was faster to 200 wins in just 9 fewer games. Pretty insane to think about that. The Lightning, they're going to be without Braden Point, I should say, for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then New York Islanders, they're missing Brock Nelson for at least 3 weeks. And in management news, San Jose general manager Doug Wilson is on temporary medical leave. But let's throw it back quick, Caleb. I want to get your quick thoughts on the Matt Murray situation for sure. But how good is Connor McDavid and how good is Andrei Vasilevsky?
Both those guys are absolute studs. Matt Murray, just to echo off Alex's point, it's a little bit sad too. I remember him being a stud in Pittsburgh for a while, winning the cup, and kind of bounced around a little bit now, and obviously has struggled a bit. So hopefully he can find a home somewhere, whether it's back with the Senators or wherever that may be. As far as Connor McDavid, that dude, there's no one I'd rather watch more in the NHL, to be honest with you. When I see him, scoring the puck with the whole team surrounding him, it's like, damn, I wish I was that skilled. But he's just fun to watch. And I know I saw some things on Twitter. People are like, wow, this point streak is finally broken. I'm like, I think the guy can have a night where he doesn't put up any points. I think we can be okay because knowing him, he'll bounce back quick. And as far as Vasilevsky goes, what a stud in net, right? Yeah. And big reason for the Lightning success. Obviously, they have a wonderful roster. But it starts with him too in net, and we see it across the NHL and college hockey. If you have goaltending, you're good to go. So I wouldn't say happy to see when the Wild played them the other night that we didn't have to face him. I hope that's okay to say, but knowing how talented that team is, but he's fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, the Minnesota Wild actually. Oh, go ahead, Alex. I was just saying, the Minnesota Wild have a date with Tampa Bay very soon here. So
yeah.
I was just going to say, so, the McDavid point streak, got stopped, and they played Arizona like a couple days later. I think it was yesterday or the day before. He had 4 points. It's just like, of course, the machine rolls on. How
about Leon Draisaitl though? I mean, a goal per game player. They're talking about him, but he's pretty much at like an 82 goal pace for the season. They asked him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, that's probably not going to be a thing by the end of the year. I don't know that I'm going to pot 82 this year." But I mean, it's kind of incredible to think that imagine if. Alex Ovechkin, we think of as kind of the pure goal scorer, the guy who usually kind of pushes 50, maybe even 60 goals on a given season if he's having a really good year. And then Leon Draisaitl, I mean, you pair him with Connor McDavid, and it certainly is a successful night for him. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Minnesota Wild and some NHL news as well. Our final quick little tidbit here in the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup. It was actually Cami Granato. She's been named the second female named to the Hockey Hall of Fame Selection Committee. She joins an 18-member group that includes only one other woman. Granato was one of the first 2 women inducted into the Hall, along with Angela James back in 2010. And she captained Team USA to gold in the 1998 Olympics. And and was the all-time leading scorer in women's international hockey at the time of her retirement. I remember that being a big thing. It was something like 46 goals on the international stage, the way that she was able to produce, and had a very lengthy career. She's currently a pro scout for the Seattle Kraken. She was also the first woman to hold that title in NHL history when the expansion franchise hired her back in 2019. And welcome in, folks. Episode number 89 here on the Huskies Warming House podcast. Caleb Peabody is up to my left and Alex Micheletti above me on my right. If you're looking on the YouTubes, if you will, guys, it's a pleasure to have you in here. We're going to talk some Thanksgiving shenanigans in the extra ice session. But kind of briefly, Caleb, let's start with you. How was your Thanksgiving? Did you have some time off? I mean, what were you up to?
Yeah, well, it's good to be with you guys. Happy Thanksgiving, belated. Yeah, it was great. It's nice to have a couple days just to kind of relax and spend it with family, and obviously, eat too much food. I'm surprised my pants still fit, which is good. That's a blessing. But no, it's been good just to decompress. And obviously there's a lot of fun hockey things going on. So just not to have, work and other things to do, just to kind of sit back, relax, take it in with friends and family. And yeah, it's good. I can't believe this year's kind of coming to an end already, which is crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of things not coming to an end, Alex Micheletti's hair isn't coming to an end anytime soon. looking good in the morning, Alex. It's a pleasure to have you again here for the third week in a row. How was the morning wake up? Good to see you. Still on time, relatively ish for the show this week. How was your Thanksgiving? And the better question is for listeners who listened to the show last week, did you actually get to eat food this week?
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. The holidays are always crazy because I got, always double everything. So I'm going to my mom's side and my dad's side. So just running around and, enjoying all sorts of good food and seeing family and good laughs and, a lot of good football over Thanksgiving too. So that was always a good tradition.
Good laughs. You must have been pulling up my senior photo album. It's been a pretty fast year. It feels like 2021 is just rolling by. We're getting ready to get in the month of December. Boys, this is actually the last show that I'll be 24 years old at the Huskies Warming House podcast, hitting the big 2-5 this week. So don't tell Nick Maxon, although he wishes, I think, that he could be 25 again. But nonetheless, excited for what he's got going on. Don't forget, folks, we've had a great time having Alex Micheletti on the show so far. Nick Maxon is going to be back in action as far as we know next week. But I did want to say, and we'll probably mention this again at the end of the show, but Alex, I mean, to this point, we've really appreciated, I know, not only for myself, for Nick, but all the Huskies Warming House podcast listeners. Caleb, I think I speak for you too when I say, what a great job that you've done being able to fill in. And I mean, when we texted you, I mean, there was no hesitation and you were willing to help out with us, and Pat was as well too. Caleb, you've been good with us too, jumping in as well. So I'm very appreciative of the Huskies hockey world, so to speak, especially for a Mankato guy. I didn't know what we were going to get when we texted you, Alex, but it's been a pleasure having you. So with that being said, we're going to talk Mankato men's hockey in just a moment, but let's start with a trivia question on the men's side and then some women's hockey for St. Cloud State. Trivia question did read this week. It was actually Eric Chester who won again this week. He's on a roll. Caleb, you're usually a participant sometimes in trivia. You got to get back on the ball. I don't know what's going on.
I didn't set my alarm. I've been setting an alarm on Saturdays. I didn't. And then I kind of crowned myself the champion, even though I've won like twice. I took a break and now I need to get back on the ball. That's my bad.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting time where I think we had somebody who said that I think it was John Lentz, if I'm not mistaken, said that we needed to change the time after we had already changed the time. And it seems like if the time's good for somebody, it's not great for others. And you know what? Noon on a Saturday, pretty easy to forget that sort of thing. So I think that's, what makes people impressive when sometimes they get the answer as quick as they can, just chilling on Twitter on a Saturday afternoon. But 2-line trivia every Saturday at noon. This week's question: St. Cloud State men's hockey was off this weekend. When is the last time they played on a Friday, Saturday of Thanksgiving? Who was the opponent and what was the Huskies' record of the weekend? I don't expect you guys to know the result of the weekend or the year, although you can take a stab at it. Caleb, if you want to take a guess to redeem yourself a little bit, who do you think they played is the better question.
I'm going to guess the Gophers.
Yeah.
Year 2004.
No, it's actually a lot more recent. Is actually, like you mentioned, it was the Gophers. Thanksgiving weekend, November 27th and 28th, 2015. Where they swept the Minnesota Golden Gophers 3-2 and 7-4 on the weekend. Joey Bennett was credited with the game winner that Friday. But like I mentioned, men's hockey back in action against UND this weekend. Women's hockey, same doubleheader against Bemidji State. They traveled to RPI last weekend. They got the win. Emma Gentry continues to impress in her sophomore season. A very welcome addition for this Huskies hockey club. As we kind of look around the WCHA, Ohio State has kind of started to become the team that might contend best for a national championship in the WCHA this year. They've had a team that's really kind of fermented, if you will, for the last couple of years in their development process, followed by Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Duluth. And they're kind of the top four that are in there. But St. Cloud and St. Thomas both tied for fifth, and then Bemidji State and Mankato sit tied for seventh, respectively. Alex, we kind of talked about this last week. This St. Cloud group, they didn't have the weekend they were looking for, albeit it was against a very good Minnesota squad. When you had the chance a couple of years ago to watch Minnesota State Mankato, you watch, Mankato last weekend without a goaltender, still fight the way they did against Ohio State. Going into a weekend like RPI, who maybe isn't as much of a powerhouse, but you still get the job done and get some good production for your goal scorers. How important is it to kind of get your offensive players back in the groove and get a couple wins under your belt, even if it's non-conference?
Yeah, it's huge. And, holiday weekend. And so it's a great time for the team to bond. And so going out there in New York, so it's not, it's a flight. And so, yeah, it's good, good team bonding, and anytime that you can put up a lot of goals, it's huge. It gets everybody confidence. It gets everybody excited. And anytime you can sweep a team, it's the best. And so it helps get you back in the flow of things for conference time, and hopefully the offense can continue. And it's nice to see them get a couple wins, and they're fun team to watch too. So good things happening with the women's team for sure.
Yeah, and you're hoping too with St. Cloud. They've kind of played some of the big dogs, but they've got Bemidji State this weekend, and we talked about this. They're sitting fifth in the conference right now, but 2-7-1 in conference play. So I think that that's where we talked about. Anytime they get Bemidji, anytime they get Mankato, anytime they get St. Thomas, they split with St. Thomas earlier. They beat Bemidji State in that exhibition game, which doesn't count in the standings, but you've got to take care of those teams. I think fifth place is a very good spot for this Huskies women's program to aim this year, and we've had a good discussion. Nick and I have about with Steve McDonald about kind of the expectations for this team, and that's their first stepping stone, is getting to the top of that the top and bottom half, if you will, getting to the top of that bottom half of the WCHA and then pushing your way into that fourth spot. Duluth is kind of stretching out that point differential. They're at 18 points, and St. Cloud and St. Thomas at 7 respectively. Caleb, one of the bright spots on this team besides Emma Gentry, Yanina Newland having a fantastic senior year. The Finnish forward represented her club on the international stage. Klara Himlerova doing the same actually for the Czech Republic too. It's good to see her success as of late. But one player that I've been really impressed with, and we didn't know how Emma Paluzni's successor, so to speak, would look. Sania Hola has looked really good. When we had, the goaltending carousel a couple of years ago where David Rennick was just coming into the fold, how important is it for a goaltender to get into the fold with a veteran goaltender like Emma Paluzni and really start to run with it early on in her career?
Yeah, I think it's super important. I know we talked about it to your point last year with the men's team, but with this women's team to build confidence, and this whole program is building and getting better, I think. It starts with goaltending. So to see that strength in that, I think only will build confidence, not only with her in net, but with the rest of the team too, knowing that they have someone back there that they can trust, and knowing that we saw, like I said, with David last year, when he started to play at his best, you saw that team come alive a little bit at the right time. So hopefully the women's team can continue to build off that. I think they're playing well. And to your point, hopefully they can start to stack some points and get into that fourth spot in the conference.
Yeah, and it should kind of be a dogfight. One of the things that is interesting to talk about. Speaking of women's hockey, and I don't actually think that we mentioned in the show, although it was an announcement that kind of came a while ago, and that's actually the format of the NCAA tournament. Traditionally, an 8-team tournament on the women's side actually is going to move to 11 teams, which is unique. Let's just put it that way. Why it's not 12, why you can't sneak an extra one in there in terms of the buys, I don't know. But nonetheless, I think Gopher fans would have something to say about that last year and how tight that race was in comparison to Duluth. But women's hockey, I think it's just great. Everyone, I think, sleeps on the women's hockey, especially the national tournament. And I don't know why, because it is some of the best hockey. And I think the piece that's always exciting too, guys, is, anytime you go to a women's hockey game, especially in the WCHA, it's easy to say, oh, there's someone who played for Team USA. There's a former Olympian. There's, someone who, now holds a school record at so-and-so school because of what she's done or that sort of thing. And you see so many players that have been at the pinnacle of the sport, if you will, and that's not taking away from the NWHL, but I think that once you kind of make an Olympic team, I think that's, you are at the epitome of representing the game of hockey for your country. So really happy for the recent success of women's hockey and the Huskies program. They've got a big test this weekend against Bemidji State, like you mentioned, 3:00 on Friday night and 2:00 on Saturday. Definitely go and check them out. They could use a great crowd, and then stay for the men's hockey game. They're playing some team from Grand Forks. I don't know, some North Dakota team. I don't know if you guys have heard. Alex, you heard of any teams from North Dakota? Not really.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, no, who knows?
Yeah. We don't talk about that much. Actually, we will end up talking about them because we're going to do some college hockey roundup here about 20 minutes into the show. Let's talk about college hockey. North Dakota, as we're kind of alluding to here, they split this weekend against the Gopher Club that really kind of gave them a test. The Gophers have not been strong on Friday nights. They came out with pardon my French, a total ass kicking in the way that they played on Friday, holding UND to 7 shots through the first 30 minutes of that hockey game. They dropped the game on Saturday yesterday. North Dakota narrowly escaping with a 3-2 win for the split. Kind of prototypical, I think, of what we expected from North Dakota, Minnesota. It's been 4 years since the Gophers have traveled to Ralph Engelstad Arena in Grand Forks. Last time was 2017. So good to see that rivalry renewed, if you will. Didn't really see any Ben Blood moments this time around, but nonetheless, good to see them back in action. The Huskies getting ready to take on North Dakota. So maybe let's start there, kind of previewing the weekend before we round out college hockey. Caleb, you've seen the Huskies play North Dakota before. You know what North Dakota means when they come to the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. What do you expect in terms of the fan engagement next weekend, and what do you expect on the ice?
Well, as far as fan engagement, I expect the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center to be full or pretty close to capacity. I think this Huskies team is coming off a little bit of a rough stretch. They played well in the Omaha series, obviously dropped that second game. And then Kalamazoo, that was rough.
Yeah.
But I think we talked about it too, on Twitter a little bit. Like, this team seems to have that one weekend every year. I think a lot of college hockey teams do. So coming into this week against North Dakota, I think it's really, really important. We're a little bit banged up, like many teams are. And we have the holiday break after. So really, I think it's important for the fans to come out and watch this team. I think it's going to be, fast, physical hockey, a great rivalry with North Dakota. They've had a very interesting season. They've dealt with some injuries, a little bit of up and down play, and they've had a tough schedule too.
Yeah.
They went from Duluth to the Gophers to us, and so they're in a bit of a gauntlet right now. I expect the Huskies to do really, really well. I think listening to Brett Larson this week, he's really pushed the guys, even though it's a holiday week, like, we got to have some good practices. I think what we saw in Western, especially in that second game, we saw some guys out of the lineup, maybe a little bit banged up, maybe some messages sent to a couple guys too. But I think we get back on track. I'm not ready to hit any panic button for this team by any means. But I do think it's important. And I think this would feel really good for this team to come out and have a really great weekend, go into the holiday break before we kind of turn the calendar to the new year. So, but don't take it lightly. Brad Berry's always got his teams ready to go, and they're gonna want to beat us pretty easily, handily. And Zach Driscoll coming back, so that should be interesting. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Zach Driscoll, I'm glad you mentioned him, has really struggled actually for this UND club, sitting under 900 in his save percentage. And I don't know if that's, I don't know. I wouldn't say he's having a great year, but I also think that North Dakota, it's been a different year, like you mentioned, for this team. They've been a little bit banged up. They haven't been the perennial powerhouse that they've been in years past. And I think maybe that's a good point to talk about. St. Cloud actually tied for fourth right now with Western Michigan in terms of conference points. But how about this? Overall records between all 8 NCHC teams, the lowest number of losses for those teams, 3. For all the teams in the NCHC, that's actually Minnesota Duluth, who's 10-3, and Omaha, who's actually 11-3. You have Miami, who's 3-10. They're kind of pulling up the rear, unfortunately. Colorado, who's 2-7. Omaha, like we mentioned. St. Cloud is 9-5. Western Michigan 10-4, Denver 8-4, and North Dakota 10-5 overall in their records. Conference play, 15 points for North Dakota. They sit atop the standings, followed by Denver at 12, Duluth at 11, Western and St. Cloud tied at 9 points apiece, Omaha at 5 points with 2 fewer games played, Miami at 3 points, and CC at 2 points with 2 fewer conference games played as well. Alex, I'm going to start with you and then throw this one back over to Caleb, because I think it's a question that needs asking. When is the last time we've looked at the NCHC and said there is not a team here that is far and away going to run away with this league? I mean, it really feels like this year the NCHC is really going to be a dogfight in the truest sense, and each team is going to kick the crap out of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, parity is rampant through college hockey this season so far. I think that's the number one trend. I think the national championship is winner is going to be coming from this conference if it's not my Mavericks. It's just it's a doggy and guys are it's hard to score in this conference, and you're seeing a lot of high scoring, action flying back and forth. And it's a lot of adversity early for a lot of these teams. And so come Frozen Four time in Boston, I think you're going to get a winner from this group in this conference. And so, it's fun to watch. It's not boring hockey at all. You have amazing coaches and really good rivalries. And it's so much fun. I'm definitely going to try to get at least a Saturday's game for St. Cloud, North Dakota, with my dad, announcing those games. So it's gonna be a battle this upcoming weekend, and I can't wait. It's so much fun.
Well, Alex, I hate to break it to you. Your Mavericks are not going to win the national championship. I figured I'd tell you now, so you're prepared for that. Just kidding, Mankato. We're going to talk about them in a little bit too. They had an interesting weekend, to say the least. And they are definitely a team that is in the mix to make a good deep title run in college hockey. Caleb, we're talking about some NCHC hockey, and we've seen, especially in the pod, we've seen definitely that fluctuation really kind of in the, it seems like in years past, the 2 through 5 or 2 through 6 spot, but it always feels like there has been a top dog. This year, North Dakota is not, the team that they were in years past, although they still sit atop the NCHC. Kudos to them, I suppose. St. Cloud, I think, was on a roll before Western Michigan said, hey, welcome to Kalamazoo. I know you have a crappy time here, so let's continue that trend. Mm-hmm. But speaking of Western Michigan, they were swept by Denver the week before, and they're a team that you had picked, Caleb, the last time we had you on. And you said, yeah, this is a team that I'm really excited about. And we were like, I don't know about that, Caleb. And you're looking like a hockey expert here. Dude, look at that. Yeah, so speaking of hockey expertisms, if you will, what's your take on the NCHC this season? And I know we asked this question before, but is there any other team besides Western Michigan and Denver that you're starting to feel a little uneasy in the Huskies hockey land as far as facing them?
Yeah. Before I answer that, let me be on record and say I will pull for the Mavs if someone from the NCHC doesn't win the national title.
That's fair. Yeah.
As Alex's new best friend, I will pull for the Mavs because they're a sweet hockey team. So back to your question. Yeah, it's a gauntlet. I know I've used that word a few times now, but it's the NCHC really, and I think I heard Ben Holson say this too, Western could be a team that sneaks up on people in the national tournament. Yeah. As far as the conference itself, we know what Duluth is going to bring to the table. I don't think you can ever count them out. Denver, like I brought up in a previous episode, I think they're really talented. And obviously North Dakota, I don't think you can ever count them out. So I think there's legitimately 5 teams that in the tournament, I wouldn't be surprised to see any one of them make a deep run. And that maybe leaves out Colorado College, Miami of Ohio, and maybe Omaha. But, Omaha, I can't sleep on them either.
Yeah,
so
11-3 so far. So, I mean, it's – yeah.
And the Huskies are going to have a test here. They get North Dakota this weekend. Then they get the holiday break. They get Bemidji, which will be interesting, kind of an in-state rival. But then they're going to see Denver out in Denver, which is going to be a tough show. I believe in this Denver team. I think last year I was a little tough on them. They just didn't win hockey games. This year, I think they're pulling it together. I would say they're probably my pick, but it's real close with Western. If St. Cloud State doesn't win the conference, I just think Western continues to give this team fits and a lot of teams, a lot of talent there. So it's going to be fun regardless. I think you're going to have 4 or 5 really good hockey teams. And when we get down to tournament time, we're going to have the debate of how many teams should get in, how many teams should not get in, put the best teams in. It's going to be fun. So I think this is good for St. Cloud, though. I think we always talk about it, like get them prepared for that time, that national tournament time, and whether they could really finish 1st or 5th anywhere in there.
That's a fair assessment to say. And, you kind of mentioned, the tournament time, we do have the addition of the pairwise and RPI again this year. So good to, should I say good to have that back in the fold? Good, but not good, but good. You know what I mean? But speaking of knowing what I mean here, North Dakota, like you mentioned, December 3rd and 4th, and then the Huskies have kind of a little bit of a break again, as you had talked about, December 31st and January 1st, the next time they're back in action, a little bit of a later, or earlier, I should say, break, if you will. Of course, we had the pod last year, so that definitely complicated things all the way up through December 20th of last year. But then the year before, it was actually December, I think, 13th and 14th, where they welcomed Omaha in kind of at the tail end of the school year there. So it's been a while since the Huskies have had a couple weeks off, right smack dab in the middle of December. And maybe that's a welcome addition. Maybe it's not. Sometimes rest is good. Sometimes too much rest isn't that great. But nonetheless, speaking of rest, why don't we move over, before we talk about the Big Ten, quickly to the CCHA and kind of the 2-horse race that has been going on there? Because I want to talk about rest. It's Minnesota State with 24 points. They're 12-4 in the season. And then Northern Michigan, Bemidji State, Michigan Tech, and Bowling Green kind of all in that mix between 18 and 16 points, respectively. Alex, the Mankato Mavericks held their opponents to what I would believe, if I'm not mistaken, was 20 shots on goal this weekend, including only 5 on Saturday. They came away with a split. The roster was looking a little bit weird. For people who didn't watch the Lake Superior State weekend, like I didn't until you duly informed me, what the heck happened with the Mavs this weekend?
I mean, they had 7 guys out on Friday, which is crazy with the flu, not COVID. So that's good. But yeah, it's a little adversity this weekend. Friday night didn't have Dryden McKay. He showed up. Showed up at the rink, couldn't even dress on Friday night. And so they had to put Keenan Rancier into his first college hockey game. So, good for him for only giving up 1 goal. And they had multiple 5-on-3s. So good for him. But crazy weekend of not giving up a ton of shots. And then Saturday, you get at least get Dryden back, and he gets another shutout, which is shutout, when he's played, and his 30th of his career. So it's an amazing run he's on, and so fun to watch. And you got Nathan Smith coming into his own. He at least coming to the weekend, he led the nation in points. And so it's a fun team to watch right now. And, hopefully they can get everybody healthy, because they got another tough weekend coming up against Michigan Tech. So it's just, it's crazy the adversity any college hockey team has over the entire season, and good to get some of those injuries or, sickness out of the way early rather than come tournament time, like we've talked about in the past. But good to get the split. And it's it's tough to travel all the way up to Saint Sue Marie up there So another fun weekend in CCHA action for the Mavs.
Alex, maybe you were onto something. Now everything is starting to come together. You actually texted me and asked me about Keenan Rancier and what I thought of him as a goaltender, because he's actually a former Minot Minotauro who I actually work for, and we've definitely kept tabs on him. So did you happen to have some insider information a little bit there, Alex, on kind of the team and where they were trending?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun to learn more about him and his journey. And it's never tough. It's always tough being, the guy behind Dryden McKay. Jackson Staber had a really tough time dealing with that, and he transferred and now is doing great things in Providence. But good for Keenan to stick with it and learn from Dryden, and he can know that if he has a good summer, that can be his cage next season, depending on if Dryden wants, because I don't think Dryden's going to come back, but you just never know. It's kind of like Tanner Morgan with the Gopher football team. Is he going to really come back or not? But with the guys getting an extra year with COVID, but good for Keenan to get that first college game in, and keep the Mavs in it. It's tough when you lose 1-0, but he did his job, and so fun to get a chance.
Alex, I don't know if you heard, but actually Dryden McKay is actually going to transfer to St. Cloud.
What do you know?
Yeah.
pull Zach Driscoll. Yeah. Go to a rival. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach Driscoll's going to have an interesting weekend this upcoming weekend. Yeah. But speaking of upcoming weekends, we have some Big Ten hockey to talk about and some Minnesota Wild. We are approaching about 36 minutes, so I do want to touch on the Big Ten very briefly. It's kind of been a 2-horse race in the Big Ten as of late. Michigan and Minnesota have kind of been the two running horses, the thoroughbreds, if you will. And then Ohio State and Notre Dame are kind of in their own middle of the pack, pulling up 3 and 4 respectively. Caleb, who wins the Big Ten this year?
Michigan, hands down.
Hands down. Okay.
Hands down. I think the Gophers are starting to play better.
How about this weekend? How about we start there?
Michigan. We'll go with Michigan again.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. And the Gophers are starting to play better. I just think inconsistency with them. And we could go on a long tangent about that. We won't. But it's been interesting. I watched a lot more Big Ten hockey this year. Penn State's had their moments. When they beat North Dakota, it was like, oh, wow, what's going on here? And then, the next weekend, not so successful. But Michigan, I just think, is top tier. I think that talent just far and away. As long as they stay together and play good, consistent hockey, I don't see them not winning the Big Ten.
Yeah. And this Gophers club, we kind of talked about, they kind of had their first solid weekend. It really felt like where they were kind of on the ball for the majority of the weekend. It wasn't a complete weekend for them, but this Gophers club, they had a young group a couple of years ago. We expected them to develop. We kind of expected a little bit more of a coming out party for Bob Motzko's club. Not to say it hasn't happened. And with the success of Michigan, I think that dampens that a little bit. But it's odd for me to think about that the Minnesota Golden Gophers could actually be a dark horse team in the NCAA tournament. I don't know how that's possible, but in 2021, 2022, it's actually could potentially be a reality depending on how Michigan does this year. I think all eyes definitely are on Minnesota, but I think that people have kind of seen their up and down start and maybe kind of written them off a little bit. And they're a team that, similar to the Huskies, they find a way to right the ship at the right time. And it's going to be a deep run for them as well, too. One more team I want to point out, kind of an interesting week for them. How about Long Island earning the split against Miami this last weekend? Their program 4-8-3 on the season. Good to see them kind of start to bounce into the college hockey world in their second full season, if you will. The only other NCHC team they played is Omaha, where they were swept pretty handily by a 13-1 margin over both nights. But I love seeing programs that can find a way to win and find a way to make their stamp. Arizona State knocking off Bemidji State the other night. So the college hockey world, definitely tune in. It's been a wacky world in terms of the extra, I don't want to say upsets, but just the unpredictability of what the schedule has brought us. But speaking of unpredictable things, National Hockey League world, let's talk about the Minnesota Wild very quickly here. A 7-1 trouncing, if you will, of the Winnipeg Jets the other night. Tough to see Matt Zuccarello and kind of see, hopefully he's all right as far as injury is concerned. Going back, a good win against the New Jersey Devils. And then to cap off that Sunday after our last show, when we had Alex on, that shootout loss, Kirill Kaprizov hitting the crossbar. They've got Tampa Bay tonight on Sunday, Arizona Tuesday, the Devils on Thursday, and Toronto on Saturday. And those are all home games. So a pretty good home stretch for this Minnesota Wild club. Alex, what have you liked from the Minnesota Wild? Do you think they'll be able to replicate the success they've had against Winnipeg? And why does this formula for this Minnesota club that, yeah, they've got some exciting young pieces, but I wouldn't peg them as a powerhouse similar to what Tampa Bay has been in the past couple of years? Why is it suddenly clicking on all cylinders for the most part for this Minnesota Wild club, even with the absence of potentially Matt Zuccarello and right now Jared Spurgeon?
Yeah, we continue to talk about it. The depth scoring, it's absolutely incredible. You got Ryan Hartman leading the team in goals, and he's only making $1.7 million. So I mean, he deserves the cash in when his next deal is up. Yeah, it's so much fun to watch. You're seeing guys like Nico Sturm, get on the score sheet, and Brandon Duhaime, and it's a team you don't have to worry about, putting your fourth line out there, against top guys, because, they can handle it. And Cam Talbot's really providing great goaltending, hanging in there when they're giving up a ton of shots like they did against the Devils. And so, it's a fun team to watch. They're not the Minnesota Wild of the past that they get accused of. And so, it's fun to see Kirill have the game like he did against Winnipeg, and like we've talked about the chemistry with Matt Zuccarello, and now that they put Ryan Hartman together on that top line, it's so much fun to watch. And maybe get JT Miller in there in the mix in a couple weeks or so with the craziness going on in Vancouver.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that in just a second. But like you mentioned, the Minnesota Wild looking good as of late. Caleb Peabody, Alex Micheletti, and myself all wearing quarter zips today. So we're all looking great as well, too. Caleb, I want to kind of ask your opinion, too. The Minnesota Wild, they've got a stretch, like we mentioned, Tampa Bay, Arizona, the Devils again, and Toronto. Not an easy stretch by any means. And I definitely can't sleep on Arizona, even though they've had a poor record to start the season. I mean, did you ever think right now the Minnesota Wild would be atop the Central and having this much success? And furthermore, having this much success where Kirill Kaprizov is basically a point per game player, and we hardly talk about him, it feels like.
Yeah. No, I don't think I predicted this at the beginning of the season. I thought they'd be competitive, not the top of the standings per se. I think there was some questions, but this team, they have a tough stretch in front of them, as you just mentioned, but luckily enough for us, we're all at the Xcel Energy Center, and this team seems to come alive offensively at home, which is great. They're feeding off, fans in the building again, and it's coming from, as Alex mentioned, the depth has been awesome to see, and we haven't heard a lot from Kevin Fiala. We haven't heard a ton as far as the score sheet goes. I know there'll be some talk whether he makes it throughout the season or if he gets traded or what his future looks like with this team. But, they're a fun team to watch because you never know on a given night. I think Ryan Hartman is one of the coolest stories of this year too, not just because of what his minimal contract of what he's making, but the guy's never scored that many goals to this point in one season. And he's, been our leading scorer. And I think Kirill's coming alive. I think we talked about this beginning of the season, I think on Twitter, Noah, like we weren't necessarily concerned when he wasn't scoring goals, knowing that if he gets one, the floodgates are probably going to open from a point standpoint. And they've been a fun team to watch every night. And this should be a fun week too, since they're getting some really tough opponents, how they match up. Even when they were down in Florida, they played Tampa pretty well, Florida pretty well. And Florida's obviously, I don't know if they'll ever lose a game at home or if they've lost at home yet. I don't have that right in front of me, but it's good to see. Last year we played only, certain teams based on COVID and the restructuring of divisions, and people kind of got after us a little bit saying, well, they're not playing the top talent necessarily in the NHL. And now we're seeing it. They're right there. So hopefully we can build on this. Hopefully maybe JT Miller, maybe can bring us into position. Can we make this happen? That would be really great. I get excited about those types of rumors. I'm sure a guy like Michael Russo will tell us when we need to know. But they're fun team.
Well, why don't we jump into those rumors, so to speak, if you will? I did want to point out, because I was kind of trying to jog my memory. I think Alex was too. Ryan Hartman, remember, he was a first round draft pick. He did have that pretty good breakout season in Chicago, and I was trying to pull that up. He had a 10-goal season in Nashville in 2018-19. Of course, he has 11 goals this year. He actually had 19 goals, 31 points in 76 games his rookie year, his true rookie year, if you will, in 2016-17 for Chicago. So, and after that, he's kind of been a journeyman NHLer. So I think the resurgence, like you had mentioned about him producing, 11 goals through, whatever it's been, 20 games so far for him has been fantastic. But before we go to our extra ice session, Alex Micheletti, you're talking to Jim Benning, who's running an absolute dumpster fire over there in Vancouver this year. It's tough to see. The pieces are starting to fall off the jigsaw puzzle, and people are trying to scoop them up. The trade packages, the two that I've heard that have been rumored so far is JT Miller for Kevin Fiala and a second, or JT Miller for Kevin Fiala and Jordan Greenway. Out of those two packages, if any, which one do you like more? And if you don't like the two of them, what's your counteroffer?
Yeah, I like that second one. I mean, I don't think Jordan Greenway has done much this season, and he hasn't done much with his top 6 minutes. You got to be producing if you're in that type of role, and so I wouldn't mind seeing him get traded too. I mean, and you got all these young guys that are really wanting to be in the NHL, and I think that can produce better than what he's doing out there. And Adam Beckman or Matt Boldy, I definitely would take either of those two over Jordan Greenway right now. I think the thing with Vancouver is I think their defense is a complete disaster right now, and so I think what the holdup is, I think they want defenseman back. So I think that's why you haven't seen JT Miller, traded yet. I'm sure the Wild would love to give them Kevin Fiala too, because I don't think they're going to be able to afford Kevin. And so I think he's gone regardless. If he doesn't go for JT Miller, it's just with the cap crunch with the Suter and Freezy buyouts, you're going to have to move on from Kevin somehow. And so it'd be really nice to get JT Miller in, put JT Miller in between Kirill and Zuccarello. That would be such a fun top line to watch. Ryan Hartman's doing a great job doing that right now, but just imagine if you could move Ryan down and have a JT Miller right there and really help out the power play too, because JT is just a force on special teams.
Yeah, I don't know if you put him with Kaprizov. I don't know how good that duo would be together. I mean, they might only put 80 points up in 10 games. I mean, we'll see.
Right.
Caleb, kind of a similar question. I'll definitely throw my 2 cents in there. But do you like either of those trade packages? Do you think Jordan Greenway's on his way out too? Are you more comfortable with the draft pick, or are you trading Jared Spurgeon? I mean, what are you thinking here, Caleb?
No, we're not trading Jared Spurgeon. I like both packages, to be honest. I agree with Alex. I'd take the Jordan Greenway package first. I think. Not to sound mean, but I think his time might be up with the young guys, in the system coming up. And, I don't think Kevin Fiala and Dean maybe see eye to eye. I'm not in that locker room, but it seems like they're not really on the same page. And so I do think Kevin gets dealt. So, his potential is so great, but to Alex's point, I don't think we're going to afford him after this year regardless. So if we package him and send him for JT Miller, whatever else we have to throw in that package, if, we got to send some vowels, whatever we got to get done, Noah, we'll send it out there. And I think that could be really exciting. I think, and it sounds like JT Miller obviously is not super happy in Vancouver. I had heard some rumblings too, someone up there that we may know, Brock Besser as well.
Yeah.
See what he ends up, if he ends up staying, but it's exciting, I think, to see what the Wild will do. And it's great to see that the system, we have some young guys that are potentially very close to being ready to come up. I've been a big fan of Jordan Greenway for a while, but to Alex's point as well, haven't seen much this year, which is disappointing.
Yeah. So. You know, it's interesting with JT Miller. Of course, he's having a great year for Vancouver. One of the few bright spots in that roster, 19 points in 21 games. And I obviously definitely well worth a look. $5.25 million for his cap hit. He's also expiring this year, as well as Kevin Fiala. So that also begs the question of, do you see him as a long-term piece in addition to that as well, too? A couple things. First of all, I think Kevin Fiala, I actually think he's a guy, he hasn't produced quite a bit. And like Alex had mentioned, it kind of goes more back to the piece of, do you believe that he's going to stay? Obviously, if you know a guy's not going to stay, he's probably a piece that's on the way out, unless he's a core piece in terms of a Stanley Cup contention. I really like the way Kevin Fiala has played this year, actually. He can't buy a bounce to save his life in terms of puck luck. The other piece of this too, with Jordan Greenway, the question is too, Jordan Greenway, he's never really been a fourth line guy. How weird is that to say? We really haven't seen him below a top 9 role. And you got to wonder, we've seen him sporadically, but you got to wonder, is he a guy that maybe starts to thrive if he starts to play fourth line minutes? I mean, is he a guy that, when you bring Matt Boldy up throughout the years, when you bring Marco Rossi up, if you have a guy like JT Miller who can slot in there, is Jordan Greenway better served being kept and being a fourth line guy simply because of the physicality that he brings? Then you're not worried about the production so much. But you heard Dean Evason talk about the one thing they want from Jordan Greenway, and when he's on, he's playing like a beast. He's a guy that no one wants to handle in the corner. And if you're a fourth line guy where really what your goal is to stay positive in the plus minus column and bring a little bit of energy, that's exactly what he can do. I mean, he seems like a prototypical fourth line guy, which is sad to say because I think we expected more from him. But it's also, his cap hit isn't monumental by any means. I think Minnesota Wild fans are just sick of him, just because we expected him to be this budding, blossoming, I don't want to say star, but a guy that was going to be a middle six guy that was going to, be capable of putting up 20 to 30 points in a season. And it just hasn't turned out that way. So I'm actually more inclined, Kevin Fiala and a draft pick, because I think that the pipeline looks good for Minnesota right now. And as much as I know that fans don't like Jordan Greenway, I still think comparatively to a guy like maybe Rem Pitlick, who I think Rem Pitlick has been I don't want to say a lot better, but better than people have given him credit for. I still think Jordan Greenway still has a place on this roster. I just don't think it's a top 9 role. I think you give him a look in that fourth line, if you will. So that's my only caveat. But at the same time, if Jordan Greenway is part of the deal for one of the best centers in the National Hockey League, even on a very poor Vancouver team, I'm not mad. I'm definitely not mad. So with that being said, it should be interesting to see what the Minnesota Wild do. And it stings because Kevin Fiala 2 years ago was kind of the only knight in shining armor that this Minnesota Wild club had when we went into the bubble and the pod playoffs or whatever you want to talk about against Vancouver. And he was kind of this budding, I don't want to say star in the making, but he was definitely the guy that carried the mail on a Minnesota team that was very not so fun to watch. And it's kind of been tough to see that come full circle because he is a game-breaking talent when he is able to pick his way through the zone and able to do those things. But like you mentioned, it's been few and far between. He hasn't produced. Maybe he's at odds with management or, being on a 1-year contract, whatever it is. But we'll have to see. And of course, we're going to cover it all at the Huskies Warming House podcast. Guys, I think it's time to head on to some extra ice. And we're going to talk a little bit about some Thanksgiving trends going on in your guys' world. Extra ice session, guys. Caleb Peabody up to my left. Alex Micheletti to my right. If you're watching the YouTube channel, I'm Noah Grant, of course, hosting the show today. Co-hosting, I should say. Technically, Alex is a co-host, although he just feels like a total badass. That's kind of what I've labeled him over the past 3 weeks. Alex, we have 15 to 20 minutes left in our journey together in your Huskies Warming House co-hosting career. Unless Nick flies to Europe, jury's still out on that for sure. But excited to have him back in the fold as well. And I've heard some great things from Nick related to you, Alex, and kind of what you brought to the table. So I'm excited to have you here for the extra ice session. Speaking of some extra ice, it's Thanksgiving weekend, guys. Interestingly enough, historically, the National Hockey League, the best night for home teams in the National Hockey League actually came back in 2018, where 13 of 15 home teams won their games the day after Thanksgiving. It was the first time in NHL history that many home teams won on the same day. The previous record was 12 back in 2016. So kind of an interesting little tidbit. Thanksgiving historically in the National Hockey League has kind of been the marker that tells everyone who's probably going to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's kind of the running joke, if you will. For the last decade or so, the trend has held that more than 75% of the teams sitting at the postseason table on that notable Thursday of Thanksgiving are going to make the postseason. From 2013 up until 2019, which was the last time we had a full calendar year, so to speak, 74 of 96 teams in a playoff spot at Thanksgiving wound up in a qualifying playoff spot for the National Hockey League by season's end, starting the playoffs in April. So 3 fast Thanksgiving facts for you guys. Let's see if you guys knew this. Black Friday, did you guys know it was actually invented to stop people from shopping over Thanksgiving weekend? Did you guys know that?
I had no idea.
No, I had no idea.
The term Black Friday, first used in 1966 by the Philadelphia Police Department. They were trying to discourage people from shopping that day in order to cut down on traffic for the Army-Navy football game the following Saturday. And look where we are now. Interesting.
Oh.
Second fast fact for you guys. Alex's favorite Christmas song of all time, I don't even know if it is or not, Jingle Bells, originally a Thanksgiving song.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go, Caleb. Written, it was actually originally titled One Horse Open Sleigh, written in 1857, and it actually is talking about the Thanksgiving holiday season. And final one, this one's for Caleb here, because I think he lives alone, right? Caleb, you live alone? Yeah. And, trying to figure out his Thanksgiving plans. There actually is, if you call 1-800-BUTTERBALL, there actually is a turkey hotline for those who are trying to go through the stressful endeavor of cooking a turkey for the first time and they don't know how. So Caleb,
that's what I need, because I don't know how.
1-800-BUTTERBALL. They've been in service for more than 30. They've been in service for more than 35 years, and they have a social media app and a Zoom stream. So kind of interesting, guys.
That's what I need.
Yeah,
now I know.
See, Alex was all right. He was nice enough to Pat that he was able to get fed, so he didn't have to worry about the turkey plans. But, so speaking about this here, guys, I want to get your opinion here before we talk about some Thanksgiving questions. Kind of a quick story about the New Jersey Devils. They unveiled their new alternate jersey, their first one in franchise history. As many people have noted, all it says is Jersey on the front. And the Devils kind of ran with this and the humor on social media, and actually started selling hats that just say hat. And of course they tweeted it in a tweet that just said tweet. So I think a lot of teams have had fun. Alex, what did you think of the New Jersey? And do you give the Devils kudos for running with the humor of their own jersey and selling hats?
Yeah, I didn't really like it. I don't know what Martin Brodeur was thinking. Why did they pick Martin Brodeur to do their jersey design? But yeah, good for them for like playing into it on social media, I guess. I do kind of like those campaigns, but the jersey itself, I was like, oh man. And that was after and then the US Olympic jersey came out too. And that was, oh boy, I some of these jersey designs have been a mess, but yeah, good for them for at least making fun too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that, we had some uproar about the Minnesota Wild, who are getting ready for their Winter Classic in about a month, as well. And their kind of jerseys, some people like them, some people don't, and I think that, jersey design, I think everyone's looking for the next revolutionary thing, but, sometimes, I don't want to say the old ways are the best ways, because it's nice to have some different flair, but it's also like, there's certain colors that go together and certain colors that don't. And it's kind of important to put those together. I don't know if people knew that, but and kind of keep the jersey striping. I found historically that the less busy the jersey, usually the better it looks in the end.
100%.
There's been a couple, I think, that have gotten away with it, and a couple that have been throwback jerseys that I know a lot of people don't like. The Chicago Blackhawks alternate that comes from like 1943, 44, the black ones. But I mean, they did wear that, so I have no problem with those. But there are some that, remember like the New York Islanders gray third jersey a couple years ago. I mean, things like that where it's like, don't try so hard, man. You got a color palette. Just chill. You know what I mean? Caleb, what'd you think about the jersey? And are you going to be a connoisseur of the hat?
No, neither one. Didn't love them. I mean, good for them for making the attempt. Maybe they'll grow on me when I see them in action. But no, I wasn't a huge fan. The social media campaign is funny. Like, I think that's really cool that the team can roll with it and maybe have a little bit of humor at their own expense, and maybe make a little bit of a profit by selling other items that just list what they are. But when I saw them on social, to Alex's point too, I saw the Olympic jerseys. I'm like, oh man, this is tough. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's a tough time. But no, to your point, Noah, like, utilize the color palette, utilize what folks generally like, and I think it's a safe call. So,
and I think if you're going to do something different, I've always thought that, the St. Paul Saints would be a great addition to a Minnesota Wild kind of alternate jersey, if you will, and kind of paying homage to that too. I know that there's some branding rights and things that go along with that. But, I think the Minnesota Wild are a great example of one of the most difficult color palettes to work on, the Christmas colors with a little bit of, cream thrown in there too. It's a challenge. I understand some teams have it easier than others, so to speak, with namesakes and stuff like that. But, I think it's good to pilot jerseys before you send them out to the general public. Maybe that's I think that's what it goes back to. You mentioned Martin Brodeur, Alex. Sometimes it's kind of crazy. Some of these things, they get through the room. They get through a boardroom of people that say, yeah, this is great. This will work. And no one thought, hey, maybe we shouldn't name a jersey what it is. But nonetheless, continuing on with our show, we're going to talk about some Thanksgiving items here, guys. First of all, I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth. I got 5 quick questions for you guys. Caleb, we're going to start with you every time, then we're going to go to Alex. First of all, we're going to talk about some food items. Caleb, are you a turkey or a ham guy?
Oh boy, both. That's not a good answer, but I like a little of both. A really good ham, it's hard to beat though. If I have to pick one, it's ham.
Fair. Alex, what do you got? Turkey or ham?
I'm with Caleb too. Ham. I love ham. I could eat ham at any type of season or type of option. So I'm with Caleb.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you guys. We had ham for Thanksgiving. Here's a follow-up question to that. It's actually not one of the questions, but I'm a big fan of the fat that comes on ham. Are you guys fans of the fat on ham, or you don't like the fat? I know some people like on my steaks. I like eating the fat. I know a lot of people don't. So, Caleb, you kind of look indecisive here. You don't look too happy about that.
I mean, I'm pretty much good with whatever. I'm not picky. So I'm good with that.
Alex, what's the verdict on fat? Not my fat, the ham fat.
I'm with you guys too. I'm in agreement. Okay. I love it all when it comes to ham.
All right. Well, let's move on to the sides a little bit, shall we? Caleb, mashed potatoes or sweet potatoes?
Oh, it's got to be mashed. I'm
okay.
King of mashed potatoes. I need like 20 pounds of mashed potatoes every Thanksgiving.
Well, I felt like a mashed potato on the ice yesterday after I ate at Thanksgiving. Right. It was not great. Alex, mashed or sweet potatoes?
God, I hate always agreeing, but mashed potatoes too. I absolutely love mashed potatoes and putting gravy on there. It's just chef's kiss, as they say.
Well, you hate agreeing. Well, I hate agreeing with you guys too. I actually disagree with you guys. I'm a sweet potato guy. I also really like acorn squash with brown sugar. But the sweet potatoes, it depends on how you make it. One of the best sweet potatoes I've ever had is you make the sweet potato layer on the bottom. I love sweet potato fries too, by the way, but that's a side tangent. But you make the sweet potatoes and then you put essentially marshmallows on top and then brown sugar, and it all kind of caramelizes on top. I really like that. I'm a big sweet potato fan. I know a lot of people, when I say sweet potatoes, they run for the bathroom. But I'm a big sweet potato guy. But nonetheless, you know what? If you give me mashed potatoes, like Caleb said, I could still eat 20 pounds of them, and I definitely wouldn't complain. Let's move on to desserts, shall we? Kind of the two traditional ones. I know people like to have some variants, but really the two common ones. Caleb, apple pie, pumpkin pie, or neither?
Oh, it's pumpkin. My grandma's pumpkin pie is the best thing in the world. It's got to be pumpkin.
I thought our show was the best thing in the world, but Caleb, we'll talk after.
Sorry.
Yeah. Alex, same question, apple pie, pumpkin pie, or, you got something off the table here?
Yeah, I love apple pie. Have a little ice cream with it too. It's good stuff. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Alex on this one. I love pumpkin pie as well, too. I think I like pumpkin pie more as when I was a kid, but it's got to, regardless of what you make, it's got to be homemade. I think, you can't, I think that's kind of one of the separators. The apple pie that has ran in our family, my grandpa, who is 92 years old, lives alone in a 3-story house in Alexandria, still makes his own apple pie recipe and has handed it down to my dad, who now is able to make it. And he has that and a Danish pancake recipe that are definitely top of the list, if you will. Question number 4 for you guys, Caleb, starting with you again. Thanksgiving or Christmas, which is better?
Oh boy. Sheesh, that's a tough question. I'll go Christmas. I think there's just a special feel around Christmas. Thanksgiving I love just because there's hockey and food and football and all those things. And I love the fall weather, although that can sometimes be winter here. But I'll go Christmas.
All right. Fair. Alex, I'm curious to see what you say on this one. Got to remember, you were able to at least eat this Thanksgiving. The jury's still out on if you get to go home and eat for Christmas. So careful when you answer, but what do you got?
Yeah, Christmas is always big with my family, and my sister was born on Christmas Eve, so we always have family around then too. So yeah, I'm a big Christmas guy for sure, and getting a chance to open gifts, and it's the best time of the year for sure.
Yeah, I really like Christmas. In fact, I mean, a lot of things to be thankful for on Christmas for sure, but I really like the run up to Christmas. I like the start of December, kind of moving into Christmas, where it feels like you're still on the front end of the holiday, but you're pushing towards that break, so to speak, especially for a lot of college students as well. Last question for you guys in terms of the quick 5 here. Caleb, if you never had to try a certain Thanksgiving food ever again, what would that food item be? Is there a certain food item that you've had that you're like, I don't want that on my table ever?
Yeah, it's the cranberries. Get the cranberries out of here. I don't need any of that. Now, what's bad is like you listed all these items before. I probably had all of them, so not picky. But the cranberries I generally stick away from. I don't know why. It's just it's not that I dislike them. There's too many other good things. When I can eat mashed potatoes, why am I going to eat cranberries?
Yeah, put cranberries in your mashed potatoes. See what happens, Caleb. Alex, same question. Is there a Thanksgiving food that you had it once, you'll never have, or when you see it on the table, you're like, yeah, I'm going to go with everything else but that?
I'm not a huge stuffing guy, so it's just one of those that not a fan of, but it's okay. But just there's a lot more items I'd rather have than stuffing for sure.
Yeah. So Alex, follow-up question here. What are do you have any other favorite food items that we haven't listed? And what is your kind of traditional Thanksgiving dinner in your family look like?
Yeah. Turkey, ham, mashed potatoes and gravy. We've kind of listed everything, the big ones. You can't go wrong. I love putting gravy on the turkey too. So, yeah.
So do you guys have an event you do every Thanksgiving? Like, do you watch the Lions every year? Like, do you have something that you do consistently every year?
Yeah, always watching football. So, came over and watched the early game with my dad, and we watched the second game too. That Dallas and in the Raiders. That was entertaining, and then we had the night game with the Bills and the Saints, and watched Stephon Diggs have a huge game. So that's fun. I always still root for Stephon. So he's a good dude. So yeah, fun to have that tradition of just sitting back watching football and good times for sure.
Yeah, good thing Stephon Diggs hasn't had any big catches in a Vikings uniform, right? Anyway.
No.
Never. Oh, speaking of football, how about Michigan and Ohio State? That was a heck of a barn burner this weekend, too. Michigan finally getting over the hump. Yeah, and in decisive fashion, too, might I add. Speaking of things that are decisive, Caleb, what is the definitive answer for your Thanksgiving dinner and your Thanksgiving tradition?
Yeah, well, let's give a shout out to green bean casserole because that hasn't been talked about yet. That's got to get a shout out.
So I got a question, Caleb. So when we make our green bean casserole, we put the crunchy onions on top. Do you leave those off or you put them on?
Oh no, you put them all on. You got to have all of them.
Yes.
I'm big, turkey and ham. But to Alex's point too, probably ham over turkey. All the things we've talked about, we have, and then We had pumpkin and apple pie, so I just had a little bit of both, and I felt heavy for about 7 days after. But no, it's fun. It's fun. I mean, watching football, I mean, it just feels like kind of a fun tradition. Unfortunately, we had to watch the Lions, but everyone else, it was good. The Raiders-Cowboys game was entertaining. The Bills-Saints game was entertaining. And, I mean, more tied to this show, I mean, we had a pretty good college hockey matchup, too, with that weekend, too, with the rivalry with North Dakota and Minnesota. So that's always fun. Now we're into, like, holiday cookie time. So let's go.
Okay, so this is another question I have. I have three more questions for you guys beyond this, because you know how I like to ask my questions. But is it time to break out the Christmas music? And are you guys it's okay to play Christmas music before Thanksgiving type of people? Is it, Caleb, is it all right to play Thanksgiving or Christmas music before Thanksgiving? Is it all right to play Christmas music now? We're still in November.
Before Thanksgiving, no. Now, probably. I mean, I'm probably hypocritical with it because I love when eggnog comes out. And if eggnog can come out at like Halloween, then I suppose Christmas music can come out. I won't be listening to it. Maybe me and Alex sing Jingle Bells together. But other than that.
Yeah. Alex, I kind of curious on that question too. And it's funny, the ring staff was really unhappy with a couple of the players that were playing last night for some reason. So we actually have in the rink that we were skating at last night, we actually have, like a little radio that you can plug in that you can play, for the speakers. Usually it's for figure skating, but while you're skating, you can turn the radio on and skate or whatever. Well, it's funny because the rink guys were trying to essentially mess with us, and they put Christmas music on when we were skating. Well, they turned on a Christmas station that has all like the bang Christmas songs, like what is it? What's the name of I can't think of it. The Ukrainian hymn or whatever, the bells, the hymn of the bells or whatever it is, like they were playing some, like hard rock Christmas songs, thinking that we were going to be upset, and we were all singing as we were, skating up and down the ice and stuff, and it totally backfired. Alex, Christmas music, have we hit that point yet, or do we got to wait, or do we just keep the albums in the back pocket?
We've hit that point. I'm with Caleb too. I won't play it myself, but I'm cool with it being on now that it's past Thanksgiving, and it just means that we're close to the holiday season and New Year's, and that's another fun celebration. Yeah. So I think we're all ready for 2022 for sure. Bring on the music.
I definitely agree. This might shock you guys. We had a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. We usually do, but I'm in a family of 3. And if I wasn't weird enough, if you guys couldn't tell yet, there are some holidays that we have had where we have had like breakfast food. We've had like biscuits and gravy or like waffles and eggs for like Thanksgiving dinner. And I tell people that, and you think that I told them that I shot the Pope or something. I mean, the way that they take the tradition so seriously, but I don't know. Really what Thanksgiving is all about. It's all about being around family. And that's kind of what my last couple of questions are centered for. Before I ask what you guys are thankful for, I got to know, Caleb, in your family at least, what's one thing you should absolutely not discuss during Thanksgiving dinner? Is there one particular topic or item, without obviously giving away trade secrets? Is there something that you definitely try to steer clear of?
I think we just kind of talk about things that we all like. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's big that we stay away from. I mean, I guess for everyone, it's probably politics. I think it's one of those things where I think we just kind of focus on each other and being back together, especially after the last year and a half. This year it's just like talk about anything. And a lot of, actually, I was with my grandma this year, and we just talked about the food because it's like we had such a feast this year. So I don't think there's really a topic that's off limits, but there's definitely things I just don't bring up. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, don't talk about North Dakota hockey in the Peabody House. Let's just put it that way.
That's true. Yeah, don't talk about that.
On Alex's side, besides Alex's hair, Alex, is there anything else that's off topic? Is there not talking about St. Cloud, Minnesota Golden Gophers? Is there anything on the table that definitely shouldn't make it there, if you would say?
Well, like Caleb said, the obvious is politics, but I'm with Caleb too. Just being with family, it was was awesome after what everybody's dealt with, and a lot of the holidays not having everybody all around together. Mm-hmm. So that is nice to be with family and just talk about food and just life and how jobs are going and everything. So yeah, it's just fun to have everybody around for sure.
Second to last question for you guys, Alex. I'm going to stick with you here. You kind of alluded to some things you're thankful for. How has your daily life, so to speak, been? By the way, usually when Nick's on the show, we at least talk about kind of what his daily life has been. I mean, how has your life been, like, generally, and what are you thankful for this week?
Yeah, I'm thankful that I never had to worry about COVID and everything, and so yeah, it's been crazy. I go into the office and I'm the only one on my team that's in the office right now. So that's been weird, but it's nice to get back into a routine and, love my drive into work and getting to listen to talk radio and all the K-Fan guys that, that it's been a part of my life forever with my dad being on that station a lot. So, it's fun to get starting the day, and just thankful that everybody's healthy. My dad went through COVID, and so I'm glad he's out of that, and just thankful that I have my job and everybody's good in my family, and about to be an uncle too, which is crazy. My sister's about to have her first kid in a couple weeks, so it's fun, exciting times for sure. So.
Well, take it from me, Alex. You can't go wrong with a December birthday baby. Let me just tell you that. Caleb, kind of a similar question. What have you been thankful for this week? What have you been up to? How has your life been going too, as well? So,
yeah, no, kind of echoing Alex's point too. Just been a time of reflection this week. Super thankful for family and friends, and my job, and I love the work that I do every day. So that's been such a blessing, and just thankful for just all the good things, health and wellness and all that. So this week is really cool to take some moment and just kind of take it all in. I think we get really busy and sometimes forget those things, but just getting time to take a step back and spend with family. Thankful for the Huskies Warm House podcast, thankful for college hockey, and many other podcasts as well. We got a really strong hockey community here, so it's fun to chat, and it's fun. I had some time to give back in the community a little bit and do some toy drives and, turkey giveaways and all those things. So that's always fun. Right. And, just super thankful person overall. And it's been a fun week.
I'm just thankful you continue to use all caps on Twitter. I think that's what's important.
The all caps thing. Yeah, it's fun. And some people misunderstand it.
Yeah.
And even I do it when I text. No one knows this too. And stop yelling at me. I'm like, I'm not yelling. I'm excited. It's brutal. So.
Yeah. I think I'm just thankful that Mankato had a split this weekend instead of a sweep.
Yeah.
My final question for you guys, because I know Alex is probably waiting on some football or something of the sort today. Definitely. My final question, we're going to start with you, Caleb. This one's kind of an interesting one. It might jog your brain a little bit. If you could thank one person today, near or far, living or dead, for their influence on your life, who would that person be and what would you say?
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a good question.
But besides Nick Maxon, he doesn't count.
Yeah, I'm not thanking Nick for nothing. He stole his bells. More on a serious note, it'd probably be either one of my grandfathers too. I unfortunately lost both of them within the last year, so kind of tough. But just knowing what they meant to me and just kind of built my foundation, and just growing up with them, and they both lived at different parts of the state, but even fun little things, the little moments, whether we were playing cards or just hanging out. I think either one of them, if I had another opportunity to have a dinner with them or just 5 minutes with them, just being able to say thank you. And, it's a good question.
Yeah,
it's a deep question. You'd make me cry.
Yeah.
Turn my camera off.
You know, I have kind of a thing as I was driving back too, and Alex, I kind of want to get your take as well too. But I was thinking about, funny enough, there's actually I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan. My dad is, likes Bruce Springsteen. And when I was a kid, we had a particular album. It was actually when the E Street Band was live in New York in 2000. They had an album that was out, and we used to listen to that on almost every road trip for hockey. So I actually ended up pulling the album out when I was driving home and thinking about, my dad used to make me, a hockey rink every year down in the pond, and would always drive me to all the games, and we'd have all those things. And, playing that album kind of made me think about, a simpler time in life, if you will, and just how grateful I am to, be able to have the opportunity to play hockey, to be able to experience that with my family and that sort of thing. So I definitely, I love your answer, Caleb, because, family is just so important. Alex, to cap off the show, same question. One person near or far, living or dead, for their influence on your life. Who would that person be?
Yeah, it's got to be my dad. I mean, that introduced me to being a sports fan, and sports have been such a huge part of my life, and in hockey. And I don't know what I would do without sports. It's something I look forward to every day, and something that you can look forward to after work every night. There's always some type of game on, and just love the competition, and just watching amazing athletes, at their top of their craft. It's fun, anytime, any sport really. I just love getting to watch with my dad and talk about it. And now with social media too, it's fun to talk with people all over the world. It's amazing. I have Twitter followers everywhere. It's crazy. Australia, Korea, Canada. It's fun to connect with people all around the world, and for the love of sport, and it's I love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned K-Fan a couple of times too, by the way. Shout out to them and the support that they've given us too. They've said some very nice things to us. I wanted to throw that out too, especially during national tournament time last year. Alex, if you want to see athletes mastering their craft, we'll hang out next Thanksgiving, and you can see how quickly I devour some sweet potatoes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But speaking of athletes actually mastering their craft, first of all, guys, I want to say thank you so much, and happy Thanksgiving and post Thanksgiving weekend to everybody. Staying safe and healthy, doing the right things as we kind of move on to Christmas break. It's good to see everybody. We have the new COVID variant that's kind of scary, that's been overseas, that I think it definitely has mentioned to be paid attention to. So definitely enjoy the time with family and stay safe, everyone. And from the Huskies Warming House podcast, we're thankful to have all of you here as listeners, and thankful for the time that Alex and Caleb have given us. Athletes mastering their craft. Women's hockey, 3:00 on Friday against Bemidji State, 2:00 on Saturday at the Herberts National Hockey Center, and men's hockey against the University of North Dakota, 7:30 p.m. Central Time in St. Cloud in the Granite City, and 6 p.m. on Saturday to cap off the weekend for some very good hockey, and probably the last hockey in a while that you're going to see both the teams get a chance to play, at least through the end of 2021. So definitely check that out if you're a Huskies hockey fan. The Mavericks, they're probably playing somewhere, but again, Alex, I got to be honest, who cares? Nonetheless, Alex, for those three Mankato fans that might be listening, what is the Mavs schedule coming up?
Yeah, they got Michigan Tech at home. So, they always have interesting battles with Tech. So, should be another fun weekend in the CCHA for the Mavericks. So. Yeah,
should be good. As Caleb had alluded to, Minnesota, Michigan on the docket coming up here as well as a flurry of NHL action. The Minnesota Wild finishing off a 5-game homestand with 4 home games this week. For Caleb Peabody, Alex Micheletti, I'm Noah Grant, and we will see you soon here in the Den.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL!
Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.